So an MMA fighter slash jiu-jitsu practitioner by the name of Sandro was recently attacked while he was inside his gym getting ready to train. And when I say attacked, I mean he was stabbed. Here's the full story.
Every Saturday I train from 12 to 5. So I get in at 11:50 and I put my shoes away. I'm taking my shoes off to train. Put my shoes on the shoe rack that's in like the top left corner of like where you enter the gym from. And I turn around and all of a sudden I'm just getting stabbed. Like I got stabbed here, right there. And then I shot for a double leg. He stabbed me twice in the back. Like right there. Crazy. Stabbed me twice in the back. And then I dropped the guard, controlled the knife, controlled his wrist, his sleeve. I sweeped him. I got on top, and then I still have my hand on this blade, and I'm pinning it, and I bite his hand, and I take a chunk out of his hand, like this part, right here. And then he let go of the knife. Right away, like the police came, they were across the street, and everybody was safe after that. I was fine. Yeah, so everybody was fine, dude, but like that shit sucked. It was scary. Good thing I was trained. Good thing it wasn't like anybody who was less trained than me. Good thing it wasn't one of my female teammates. Like, very happy that it was me. And that shit sucked.
Now, in addition to the video that he posted, Sandro also did a recent Instagram live. It's about an hour long. I'm not going to show you clips from that. I'll post a link down below if you want to check it out. But he goes into a little bit more depth about what led up to the actual incident, what took place during the incident, and some of the things that took place after. But he also gives us a little bit of information about the guy who actually attacks him. And apparently, this individual used to train at the gym for quite some time, and he was kicked out for whatever reason. Now, he may or may not have had some mental issues that he was dealing with. I don't know that for sure. That's just something that they were speculating. But nonetheless, this appeared to be an unprovoked attack. The reasoning behind it, we don't know, but it happened quick. It went from 0 to 100. One moment, Sandro's putting his shoes up in the cubbies. Next thing he knows, he's being stabbed in the shoulder and the back. So again, this is a prime example as to just how violent attacks work. There's no warning. There's not always a time to just run away or to pull out a firearm and just shoot them like the internet seems to believe. Sometimes you just get caught off guard, and next thing you know, you're in a fight. Now, one of the other things that Sandro brought up in his interview was the fact that several of his teammates had noticed that this individual would linger outside the gym and would just stand across the street, just staring into the windows of the gym during classes. They also reported that there's numerous occasions in which he would try to enter the gym, trying to find and talk with the owner or the coach, and he had to be escorted out numerous times. So apparently, this dude was a red flag. And if you saw this dude, I would assume that you would have like a heightened sense of alertness just knowing that this guy is just trying to cause problems, or that, again, he's not mentally all there. You know, these are the types of attacks that you can't always prepare for. We can train as much as we want. We can go through all these different drills and live scenarios, but nothing is going to prepare you better than being in the actual real encounter. And fortunately, Sandro lived through it. He's able to talk us through it. And again, we can use his experience as a learning opportunity for the rest of us. So for starters, let's talk about a few things that went wrong. Now, I am not saying that Sandro in particular did anything wrong. I want people to understand that he is a human being. And as a human, we make mistakes. And it's, you know, as much as we preach situational awareness, as much as we can talk about always being prepared and watching your six, so on and so forth, sometimes we just get complacent. Sometimes we just get lazy. Sometimes we just get distracted, whatever, and we get caught off guard. That being said, he even admitted himself that there was a lack of situational awareness on this particular day. Normally, as he stated, he's very good about watching his back. He's very observant of what's going on around him. In this moment, he did observe this individual outside of the gym prior to him entering the gym. What he didn't notice was the fact that the guy was following him inside the gym. Again, lack of situational awareness. Now, had he noticed the guy, or had he approached the guy or talked to the guy, or, you know, dealt with the situation outside, would things have been different? Who knows? Now, the big area that, in my opinion, is something that he probably regrets more than anything else was turning his back on this guy once he was inside the gym. Now, again, we've already established that this guy has been a problem. He has potential mental issues. He's a little bit unpredictable. We don't know if he's violent or not. But again, it's just someone that, based off of his history, should already kind of heighten your alertness just based off his behavior. So the moment that Sandro sees that this individual is now walking into the gym, and Sandro even stated, I turned my back on him, put my shoes up in the cubbies, and as I turned around, he was already stabbing me. If I was in that situation, I would hope that I would have remained focused on him, not worried about putting my shoes away yet, and dealt with the fact that this guy was approaching the gym, because again, as we have established, he's been asked to leave the premises numerous times. So if this guy is now approaching the gym and I know he is a potential problem or could be a potential problem, I'm going to deal with the situation, and I'm definitely not going to be giving this guy my back, because again, had he decided to pull out the knife right then and there, at least I'm facing him, I can see what's happening, and hopefully I would be able to respond a lot faster. So again, as a reminder for all of you, if there's anyone that gives you bad vibes, or you have a bad history with, or the individual themselves has a history of aggression, violence, unpredictable behavior, any sort of red flag behavior, that is something that the moment you are in proximity of this individual, I do not want to turn my back on them. I do not want to lose eye contact with them. I want to make sure that I'm always aware of where they're at, what they're doing, so that if anything does come up, or if I need to remove myself from the situation, I can do so immediately. But I want people to realize that as human beings, we are going to make mistakes. We are not going to be perfect all the time. You're not going to be able to be aware of your surroundings at all times. What I will say though, is that the more trained you are, even if you do get caught off guard, you will be able to kick it into gear faster. You will be able to start fighting back faster, because that is your natural instinct. So again, let's jump into the next portion of this video of what did Sandro do correctly. For starters, he acted immediately. He did not hesitate. The moment he realized that this guy had cut him and attacked him, there was no hesitation, there was no pause, there was no stepping back and now trying to create distance. He immediately closed the distance and got hands-on right away. And I honestly think that his quick thinking and quick reaction to just get into the fight is honestly what saved his life. Now, just as a side note, and I know I've touched upon this before in previous videos, but whenever you are dealing with an attack in which a weapon is involved, obviously running away is going to be your best option. De-escalating the situation is going to be your next best option. But ultimately, you may not have a choice, and you have to get hands-on. And if we do have to get hands-on, I want to focus first on getting control of the attacking arm. If they're wielding a knife, I want to get control of that arm so they can't utilize the weapon. Once I have control of the attacking arm and the weapon overall, I'm going to be applying as much damage as quickly as possible. Now, in this case, he shot a double leg. Is that something that I would recommend doing for everyone? Absolutely not. Obviously, he's trained, so he knows how to throw a proper double leg. That being said, throwing a double leg in a street fight, let alone one in which a knife is in play, is very risky, and he paid the price for it. He took a couple stab wounds to his back, which he admitted. His reasoning behind shooting the double leg was twofold. One, he wanted to close the distance as quickly as possible, and two, he felt that if he was able to get his head and body in close enough, that he was protecting his vital organs, or not vital organs, but he was able to protect his head and neck, essentially, right? He was risking his back to protect his head and neck. What I do want to commend him on is that the moment he shot the double leg and was able to close the distance and get his hands on this individual, he immediately put his attention on the weapon and he grabbed the weapon. Now, I was a little unclear just based off how he explained it, but from my understanding, one hand was on the actual blade itself, whereas the other hand was on the dude's wrist/sleeve. Not the ideal grip, right? I would rather have the wrist or the hand rather than the blade, but if the blade is what you get, the blade is what you hold on to. And I would much rather deal with damage to my hand than getting stabbed. Now, the next thing that he did extremely well, other than reacting immediately, is he adjusted his techniques on the fly. And again, this is something that you can't teach. This is something that fighters have instilled with them, because again, we train different situations, we train different scenarios, we train how to adjust from one option to the next if you hit a wall, quote unquote, right? If you hit a wall, the person stops you, blocks you, stuffs your takedown, whatever, we have to be able to adjust within a moment's notice. And that's exactly what happens. He shoots the double leg, he gets hands on with the blade, he realizes that he's having a hard time taking this guy down, so what does he do? He pulls guard. Now again, not something I would recommend in a street fight, but he's trained, he understands what he's doing. He pulled guard, immediately swept the dude and got on top. And again, when it comes to grappling as a whole, especially when we were talking about grappling for your life in the street, I want to be the person on top. I want to be in a top dominant position where I have full control. I can throw strikes if I need to. I can access my weapons if I need to. I can scan my area if I need to. And more importantly, I can quickly pop back up to my feet. And as we mentioned, the last part about this, right? When you're dealing with a weapons attack, I want to get control, I want to isolate the weapon, and I want to apply damage as quickly as possible. So what does he do? He bites a chunk of the dude's hand and literally spits it out. Pretty badass if you ask me, but that got the dude to drop the knife immediately. No fancy disarms, no fancy techniques of any sort, just straight 2-on-1 control, take him down, get on top, apply damage, and just control the guy until help arrives. Unfortunately, the police, I guess, were like right across the street, and the moment that he was done, eating this dude's hand, the police were already there. They were able to get hands-on and arrest the guy, and he really didn't have to do much past that. And I do commend him for this, because he stated in one of the videos, I'm not sure which one, but that he was very grateful that it happened to him and not one of the newer students or someone that wasn't trained, because again, no one wants to be in that situation. But the fact that it happened to someone that knows how to deal with violence and they understand how to apply violence, you couldn't have asked it to happen to a better person, because they have the best chance of surviving an attack like this. Again, I don't wish this upon anyone, but as Sandro says, he's glad it was him compared to someone that had little to no experience, because he doesn't think that it would have turned out the same way. What are some things that we can take away from these incidents so that we can learn from it, we can grow from it, we can apply, this type of information to our training, so that we can better prepare people as a whole, so that if someone else finds themselves in a similar situation, they have a better understanding and idea of how to handle it. First and foremost, and I think this is probably one of the biggest lessons to take away, is that violent attacks can happen anywhere, anytime, and to anyone. Sandro's no slum. He's no average Joe. He is a fighter. He, I have no doubt, intimidates the majority of people that walk past him, because they see this guy that's got, messed up ears, strong neck, big shoulders. You can just look at the dude and be like, yeah, I'm not going to mess with him. This dude clearly knows what he's doing. He can clearly fight. He may not be a UFC champion, but he knows how to handle himself in a fight. Yet, he still gets attacked. And even someone that has years of training under the belt, they can still get caught off guard. And I think that's another important lesson to understand. We have to constantly be scanning our area, but we also have to understand that we're going to make mistakes, and that we're going to get complacent, and that we're going to get lazy at times. And maybe that'll bite us in the ass one of these days. Who knows? As much as possible, we need to be scanning the area. Whenever you leave somewhere, whenever you arrive somewhere, 10 seconds, scan the area, see who's around you, see what's going on. Again, if anyone's giving you bad vibes, if you got a bad gut feeling, if anyone's appearing to be extra hostile or aggressive, then we address the situation or we get it out of there. Last but not least, and honestly, this might be the biggest one, go train. There's no reason that people should not know how to fight in today's day and age. You don't have to be a professional fighter, but you should know how to handle yourself long enough to protect yourself until help arrives. Because again, police aren't necessarily going to be there in a moment's notice. You might have to wait 10 minutes. You might have to physically fight somebody off for 10 minutes. And if you're not comfortable doing that, then you need to get in the gym and train. And you don't have to train often. Once a week goes a long way if you actually take the time, you focus when you're in the class, and you try to get as much out of that class as you can. Obviously, I would recommend training more than once a week, but you get my point. Now, some people were saying that he survived this encounter because he knows jiu-jitsu. And yes, did his jiu-jitsu help him in this situation? Absolutely. But I don't want people now saying, train jiu-jitsu. If you know jiu-jitsu, you can stop knife attacks. That's not the case. Jiu-jitsu is a combat sport. Boxing is a combat sport. MMA is a combat sport. If you train in any of those, you should be able to handle yourself in most violent encounters. Yes, that includes against a knife. Why? Because you have that fighter's instinct. You're going to close the distance. You're going to get hands-on. You're going to apply damage. You're going to fight just like you do every day for training. And now you're going to do it for real. That is why he survived, because he is a fighter. He went right into fight mode. He knew how to make the adjustments. He knew to react immediately. He knew how to apply damage, and he understands violence. And he understands that sometimes you have to deal with violence with more violence. All in all, people, we need to understand that no matter who you are, we never know when our time is going to come. We need to be as prepared as possible in all aspects of our life, but we also have to understand that it's not always going to be perfect, and that we're going to make mistakes and we're going to get caught off guard, and that's just a reality of it. The goal is, though, is that whenever our time does come, that we are as prepared as possible, and that hopefully our training pays off and we're able to handle the situation as efficiently as Sandro did in this case. So again, I'm going to post all the links down below. Sandro, if you're watching this video, again, man, I commend you for how you handled it. I praise you for speaking up about this and sharing your story so that we can learn from it and grow from it. And I'm glad you're okay. So as always, my friends, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.